Oh, this one's going to linger. Get comfortable. Let the cold fade away. Slow down. Breathe it in. And when you're ready, baby, dream of a new life.
Cabin Life, Borrowed Heat by Catherine Serafina. Chapter 5. What breaks? What holds? The morning had been uneventful. We finished breakfast without much conversation, the kind that didn't feel awkward anymore. Just efficient. Shane and Davis layered up, boots thudding against the floor as they moved around me, while I cleared plates and stacked them in the sink. By the time they stepped outside, breath fogging in the cold, the cabin already felt quieter without them. I washed the dishes slowly, lingering longer than necessary. When I went back to my room, I stopped short. The bra lay folded neatly on my cot. It wasn't decorative, no lace, no ribbons, just cotton, practical and unmistakable. The cups had shape to them. More than I wanted to acknowledge, I picked it up, turning it over in my hands, my chest giving a dull, irritated throb as if in response. There was a small fabric tag stitched along the band. I hesitated, then checked it anyway. B? I stared at the letter longer than I wanted to. Not disbelief. Something quieter than that. Recognition, maybe? Or the uncomfortable awareness that it wasn't wildly wrong, that it wasn't some impossible jump. I held the cups up against myself without putting it on, just enough to tell. There was space there. More than there should have been. The fabric would sit loose if I tried. Gap where there shouldn't be one yet. Not for me. Not now. Too big to ignore. I set it back down carefully. Not yet. I left it where it was, but I was aware of it as I moved through the cabin afterward. Like an unanswered question I'd chosen to step around. The first thing I heard was shouting. Not close. Not yet. Carried on the wind, sharp enough to cut through the quiet like a blade. I was halfway through sorting dried herbs when the sound reached me, distant but urgent, my name tearing loose from someone's throat. Lainey! The jar slipped from my hands and shattered on the floor. I didn't stop to clean it. I didn't even grab my coat properly. Just shoved my arms through it and pushed the door open hard enough that it banged against the wall. The cold slammed into me, stealing my breath, but I was already moving, boots crunching over packed snow as I scanned the tree line. Here, Davis shouted again, closer now. I saw them then. Movement between the trees, wrong and unsteady. Davis half running, half supporting Shane, who was hopping on one leg, his weight heavy and awkward against Davis's shoulder. Something dark was buried in Shane's thigh. For a moment, my mind refused to name it. Then I saw the handle. The knife was still there. "Don't pull it out," I said, breathless as they reached me. I didn't remember deciding to say it. The words were just there, solid, certain. Davis nodded immediately. We didn't. Shane's face was gray beneath the windburn. Careful. Shane tried to laugh and failed. Guess I finally tested one of my own traps. Save it, Davis muttered, tightening his grip. I didn't look back again. I just led. Inside, everything narrowed. I cleared the table with one sweep of my arm, dishes clattering into the sink. Shane was lowered into a chair, his breath shallow and fast, ribs clearly bothering him even before he said anything. "Hurts to breathe," he admitted through clenched teeth. "Don't move," I said, already pulling gloves on. "You're going to bleed more if you do." "I'm going to have to cut your jeans," I said, already reaching for the scissors. "Tell me you've got another pair." Shane let out a strained breath that might have been a laugh. "Yeah, do it." I cut his pant leg away carefully, the fabric resisting for a second before giving in. The knife had gone in deep, angled awkwardly, the skin around it already swollen and angry. Davis hovered, useless for once. "How bad is it?" I looked at the wound, then at Shane's face. "Bad enough," I said. "Not bad enough to panic?" That was a lie, but it was the kind of lie people needed. I worked methodically. Pressure on the hand wound first. Clean, wrap, elevate. Shane hissed when I touched it, his other hand gripping the 8th inch of the table so hard his knuckles went white. "Sorry," I murmured, though I didn't slow. My chest pulled sharply as I leaned forward, the ache flaring hot and distracting for a second before I forced it aside. There would be time to notice it later. Right now, there was blood on my hands and a man trying not to pass out in my kitchen. "Lainey," Shane said quietly, eyes flicking up to mine. "You sure you know what you're doing?" I met his gaze without thinking. Yes. The certainty surprised both of us. The knife came out last. Slow, steady, straight back just like it went in. Shane groaned, a sound low and raw enough to make Davis flinch. Blood followed the blade, dark and immediate, but I was ready. Pressure, packing, wrapping tight enough to matter. "Ribs?" I asked. "Feels wrong," Shane admitted. "Left side." I wrapped his chest carefully, snug but not crushing, watching his breathing even as my hands moved. He sucked in a sharp breath, then another, testing it. "Bruised," I decided. "Maybe cracked. You're not hunting for a while." "Damn it," he muttered. "Alive," I said. "That's the priority." Davis let out a breath he'd clearly been holding. When it was over, when the bleeding was controlled and Shane was propped up with blankets and pillows, the adrenaline drained out of me all at once. My hands shook. I noticed then how warm the cabin felt, how my shirt clung damply to my back, how my chest throbbed with a deep, insistent ache that had nothing to do with exertion. I pressed my arms lightly across myself without thinking, grounding myself in the contact. Shane watched me, really watched me. "Didn't know you could do all that," he said quietly. I swallowed. I had to. "No," he said. "You didn't panic." Something shifted behind his eyes. Not admiration, not gratitude. Recalibration. I reached for my pack, fingers still unsteady, and pulled out a thick paperback. The cover was worn, the spine creased from use. I handed it to Davis. He glanced down at the title, brow lifting slightly. "The Ultimate Survival Medicine Guide," he said. "I found a few books when we were sorting supplies," I said. "I figured you knew about them already." I hesitated, then added more softly, "I just had time, and it seemed like something worth knowing, just in case." For the next few days, nothing was normal. Davis went out alone, moving cautiously, never far. Shane stayed in the cabin, restless and frustrated, pain sharpening his temper even as it dulled his strength. I managed everything else. Food, fire, water, bandages, watchfulness. Every time I was in my room or just walked by it, I noticed the bra again. Still folded, still waiting. Some nights, when the cabin was quiet and Shane slept fitfully, I stood there longer than I meant to, looking at it. My chest felt heavier now, fuller in a way I couldn't deny, the ache deeper and more constant. Soon, I knew. Just not yet. I checked Shane's wounds morning and night, my hands steady now, familiar with the work. He stopped flinching after the first day, stopped questioning me after the second. "You should have been a medic," he muttered once. I didn't answer. I was too busy noticing how easily the apron tied around my waist now, how it sat against hips that didn't feel quite the same as they had weeks ago, how the leggings had become automatic, unquestioned, their warmth a quiet mercy during long hours by the stove, how being needed felt grounding. One night, as I helped Shane settle back against the pillows, he caught my wrist gently. "You kept us together," he said. "You know that, right?" I froze. Davis, across the room, didn't look up, but I could feel his attention sharpen. "I just did what had to be done," I said. Shane shook his head slightly. "That's not nothing." His hand slipped away. But the space he left behind felt heavier than the touch itself. Later, lying awake again, I stared at the ceiling and replayed the day in fragments. Blood, pressure, breath, the sound of my own voice steady when it needed to be. I thought about how quickly the fear had given way to action, about how natural it had felt, about how for the first time since the cold came, I hadn't felt like dead weight. I pressed my palm lightly against my chest, feeling the warmth there, the ache. Something had broken that day, but something else had held, and I wasn't sure anymore which one scared me more.
Thank you for watching. Sometimes being needed feels heavier than fear.
Still lost in the dream, aren't you? Don't worry, I've got plenty more where that came from. Sweet, sexy, transformative little dreams. All just a click away. And if you're craving the naughty versions, the ones too hot for YouTube, you know exactly where to find them. On my Patreon. I'll be waiting, gorgeous.